So, Theodore Rex. Where do I even start on this? Well, first of all, let's say that this is the movie that took Whoopi Goldberg off the big time list. Like, she was a big time movie star before this film, and after this film, it was pretty much just talk show. Actually, as a matter of fact, the studio had to force her. Basically, they had to coerce her into finishing the film. She wanted to walk out because it was actually it was that terrible to work in this film. But anyway, that doesn't even begin to start discussing the problems of the film itself. Obviously, it goes without saying that there are a lot of biological problems in this film that are like never really addressed. Why are all of the dinosaurs psychic? And are is that like was that a normal thing? The entirety of Dinosauria was just they all had telepathic powers, and for some reason birds like don't or do, or all the birds are extinct in this movie, so it doesn't. So maybe they are. Maybe the movie's trying to tell us that, but that's never really addressed either. How are the carnivorous dinosaurs not eating meat? That's like forcing them to be vegetarian seems like in a movie that's trying to talk about racism that you're denying them something fundamental about what they are because we've just arbitrarily decided that that's bad. And this movie is supposed to be far enough in the future they can properly grow meat in labs anyway. So why not just... Anyway, that's kind of beside... all of these are pretty much beside the point because they're not even the problems that the movie is talking about. Basically, the movie is trying to help white people empathize with minorities by replacing the minorities with dinosaurs and having everyone be racist against the dinosaurs instead of real-life minorities, because movie studios apparently think that white people will empathize with fictional creatures before they empathize with real existing people who face actual real oppression in real life. This is a pattern that's been followed by a variety of movies and TV shows throughout the history of movies and TV shows, most recently with Netflix's Bright, which has orcs instead of black people. And weirdly, that also has a similarity with Theodore Rex, because the main character, the cop character, is also a black person, which is a bit weird because, like, I'm sure that racism still exists at this point in this world in the future, or in this alternate fantasy universe, whichever you're talking about. So you'd think that like the main character, who's this cop of African American origin, would be like, yeah, you know, I've faced hardship and oppression too. I can empathize with you, but they never do that. They never discuss that. They act as though like real racism doesn't actually exist, and we're only racist against towards other species now. So that's a weird thing that these movies all decide to do, and it's kind of a problem because it's sort of dismissive of the actual real problems of racism that actual real people face in real life. But anyway, so they also in Theodore Rex, everyone hates dinosaurs. Well, most people hate dinosaurs because they do. They hate dinosaurs. This there's no explanation for why exactly given. I mean, maybe this movie would have made more sense if we would have been able to find a version of it that didn't have like 3 different languages all overlaying one another at the same time, so we could actually hear what was going on. But anyway, so from what I could gather, the villain of the movie. All living things except for humans went extinct, which that doesn't really make any sense either, because we, you know, if like once the bees are gone, we're pretty much dead. We kind of rely on plants to make food and breathable air, but you know, screw that, right? So the villain decides that he's going to recreate dinosaurs and extinct creatures. For some reason, you know, there's no, as far as I could tell, there was no real, they never really talk about having recreated, like, you know, like apples, or like wheat, or other plants and animals that are absolutely necessary for our survival, I guess because they couldn't really shoehorn a racial message into that. But, speaking of racial messages, there's like one Asian dude in the whole movie, and he's a villainous toy maker, so that's also a problem this movie has, but that's not even the worst part. So the villain recreates dinosaurs, And for some reason he makes it so that the dinosaurs all have human level intelligence, or maybe they did anyway and birds just don't because screw birds. Did the people who made this movie like just not like birds? Anyway, so he makes dinosaurs. The dinosaurs all have human level intelligence, and then everyone hates the dinosaurs. And there's no context for that. As far as I could tell, there's no context given for that, which, I mean, I understand that everyone kind of knows where racism comes from. It has all sorts of ancient origins and sometimes more recent origins, and it really all boils down to different types of tribalist psychology and you know, and that kind of thing. But why would someone not want to be friends with a telepathic dinosaur? The story of Theodore Rex is kind of improved upon by Christine's fanfiction series, which actually tries to give some like actual context of where racism against dinosaurs and other prehistoric species comes from. Like, it actually portrays racism, well, the allegory for racism in a fairly believable way, where like there's like some background to it, there's a context, there's a story surrounding it. It comes from somewhere, it has specific causes, and it manifests in ways that we see in the real world, but Theodore Rex does not have those. So it makes a number of mistakes. Like, it tries to talk about racism by not talking about racism, by replacing the people who are affected by racism. Well, they're not all replaced, but it's like it takes the real racism and puts dinosaur stickers on it, which is not good. So it tries to talk about racism, but it doesn't really talk about like actual racism. It assumes that people like won't empathize with people who actually suffer from the societal effects of racism. It doesn't really suggest anything. Like, the moral of the story, as far as I can tell, really is just that racism is bad, which, like, yeah, racism is bad. Everyone kind of knows that racism is bad. Like, people who actually are racist don't even know that they're racist most of the time. Like, when you ask someone to think about to picture in their head a racist, they probably won't picture someone who's just sometimes casually racist, but totally enjoys doing regular non-racist things. They're going to picture someone who is racist 100% of the time. Everything that they do is about racism. They live, eat, and breathe racism, and that's just who they are, completely as a person, which is not how anything works in real life. This movie is like if someone were trying to treat. Imagine if you were a cancer patient, because racism is like a cancer on society. So I feel like that's an appropriate metaphor for racism in this case. There are not a lot of things that really should be compared to cancer, but racism is probably one of them. Imagine if you were being treated for cancer, and the oncologist walked into the room and stamped his feet and said, "Cancer is bad," and then just walked out of the room and acted like the problem was solved. That would not solve the problem. And Theodore Rex doesn't solve racism just by saying that it's bad. No, you need to... If you want to look to a movie that really addresses like racism in a way that is productive, look at Zootopia. It's probably the only film that I can think of that uses an allegory for bigotry in a way that actually treats it in the way that it should be. And I feel like a lot of times Christine's fanfiction series also tries to go that same route, and that's the way that this should be approached. Theodore Rex was not. It tried. It tried, but not particularly hard. And it ruined Whoopi Goldberg's career as a movie star. And yeah, that's pretty much it.